Staying where you are.
I'm not going
We
anywhere.
lost it.
And we hope that.
Thank you very
every
much
time
for
you
your
look at it, you think
service.
about us.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Joan, we have the same thing for you.
That's lovely. I'm
Yeah,
delighted to take a party gift.
It's been great having you on our board, and you're always welcome here.
Thank you for the honor of
Okay,
doing this.
thanks for all the input
It's
you've
been
given
really
us.
great.
Hey, and I welcome all of our guests.
Yeah,
Well,
everyone feel welcomed. Yeah.
all right, you're on.
Okay, I'm on. I've got an exciting update to give you all. I want to start, however, just with the elephant in the room. I just sent out an email this morning to the entire campus community, and some of you have not had a chance to read that. So I'm going to read you the email that I sent explaining what happened last night and some events of the last couple days. Dear volunteers, I want to update our campus community about events on campus last night. Free speech is the backbone of any university, where debate should lead to better solutions and more durable democracy. We recognize and protect members of the campus community's right to free speech. We apply laws and policies to everyone equally and without prejudice to preserve the use and enjoyment of university property and protect the safety of members of our community. A group of individuals does not have the right to monopolize university property for an indefinite period of time. We've been working for days to engage some of our students, beginning with a registered student organization that held a planned civil event on campus on Wednesday, followed by a productive meeting with administrators yesterday. Following the vigil, that was the planned event, it lasts for an hour, an unplanned assembly gathered and made its way to the lawn of the College of Law, where final exams are already underway. Several university leaders worked all afternoon Wednesday to communicate permissible and impermissible activities to the assembled group and their leaders. The university's approach in managing situations such as this once begins with warnings from the administrators, that's the first step, and those warnings include notifying participants about the potential escalation to law enforcement if necessary. Participants are given a reasonable opportunity to conform their behavior to law and policies. Campus leaders worked into the night Wednesday following this approach. As we engaged Wednesday night into Thursday morning, the group of protesters decided to leave with no arrests necessary. The group returned later Thursday, and again, campus leaders worked throughout the day to make protesters aware that their event was violating the policy on the use of outdoor space, and their plans for the evening would also violate state law. Campus leaders gave protesters time to speak within their group. Then Vice Chancellor for Student Life, Frank Cuevas, delivered a message to the group personally warning them to disband or the UT Police Department would respond. Last night, UTPD arrested 9 people, 7 students and 2 people not affiliated with the university. All 9 received citations and were released. The students will face sanctions under the Student Code of Conduct. This was not the result that any of us wanted. We will continue to engage with all of our students to provide support, and we will also continue to enforce the law and university policy for the benefit and protection of everyone in our community. We ask that all volunteers express themselves in ways that respect the rights of others. Dondi Plowman, Chancellor. So I just wanted the board to know that, because you weren't going to get a copy of that, that's what happened. And that's the communication that I sent to the faculty today, the staff and students. Any other thoughts or comments or questions? Are we okay?
Probably you should share that memo to some other universities around the country. It's not had the result.
Yeah. Okay, thank you all. Now, on to a more pleasant subject. I get the opportunity to give you just an inkling of all the great things happening on our campus. And so I've got some slides to guide us. 2 weeks ago, I was really thrilled to be invited to the Ohio State University. I got to remember to say the. That's important to them. I found out they've copyrighted that. To give what's called the James Patterson Land-Grant University Lecture. James Patterson and his wife were in attendance, as well as the new president, Ted Carter. And it was a really fun event. And the theme of my comments there it's a theme that we're just continuing to develop here. And I'll give you just sort of a taste of it. And we will send you the link to the full speech. It was also very short. But the land-grant university, I was trying to describe what I think of as the modern land-grant university, because we talk about that a lot here. And I talked about how the modern land-grant builds on the original land-grant was organized around a couple of things. Let's teach in disciplines that are more applied: agriculture, military science, industrial arts, industrial technology, all of which became engineering and business. And let's also work with people in those fields helping solve the problems they need solved. So for example, the best model is what's happening in agriculture. If you look at our research stations across the state, you go visit them. It's really impressive to see our faculty, our scientists working with people from the ag industry on the problems that are relevant to them. How do you make your row crops more productive? How is this bean different than this bean? Those are just some examples from my own experiences. And the modern land-grant to me is a university that is partnering with other industries as well, in addition. And I think we can learn from the agriculture model. I use the example of the bridge in Morgan County, where our university professor from engineering and his students and postdocs were all out there. I attended a ribbon cutting for the new bridge. This was a couple years ago. And it was so touching to me to see the community there, elected representatives, the mayor, like 20 chairs sitting there in front of the bridge. And our faculty member got up there to talk, and he's one of our most well-known, big-time researchers at this university. And he stood there, and the first thing he said was, "Thank you for trusting us with this project that you're going to drive over and your families are going to drive over for years to come." And then he proceeded to talk about what was in this bridge. The materials have sensors in them, so at any time, this is one example, people can know what the weight load is on that bridge. And to me, that is an example of the kind of thing that the land-grant does. And I also talk about, and this is something that I feel strongly about, that right now, higher education across the country, the public has lost trust with higher education. If you look at the Gallup poll, the most recent one was we're down to like 36% of Americans have confidence in higher education. And when I was in Columbus, I said, but if I went out on the street here and asked people, how do you feel about higher education, it would probably be, I might be scoffed at. But if you ask them how do they feel about the Ohio State University, people would beam. And the same thing happens here. If you ask people how they feel about this university, they love this place. So I really I'm committed to helping our university be a university that leads. I think there's a lot of publics that have chased looking like the privates and chased like, oh, let's be a leading university. And so my challenge is, why don't we be a university that leads? So I just wanted to share that with you. It was sort of a highlight for this semester for me, and really great to be up there with folks from Ohio State who are very interested in partnering with us on projects as we go forward. So I just wanted you to know a little bit about how I've spent my time lately, carrying the brand around the country.
Hi, I'm Dottie Plowman.
Oh, this is Ohio State.
University of Tennessee, Knox. I'm here on the campus of the Ohio State University. I've got a few things to say about what I think the modern land-grant looks like.
It's the
It
president.
looks like what we're doing in Tennessee, and it looks like what Ohio State's doing. It's a great opportunity to exchange ideas about what the future of higher education could look like. It needs to look a lot more like the land-grant university.
Please join me in welcoming Chancellor Dr. Plowman.
Large public research universities have spent a lot of time striving to be like our elite counterparts.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting to achieve large research expenditures, elite graduation rates, and top reputational scores on the surveys of our peer institutions. There's a merit in those external measures of success, don't get me wrong. But what happens if we stop putting so much weight into being leading universities and instead become universities that lead?
So there you are. We just, thanks to Tish's team, we had some media that we were able to get out of that. So wanted you to keep track of what we're going. This is a really exciting project, and I'm going to let Keith jump in anytime he wants to. A project that we are proud to collaborate. We're the leads on this. FIFA has entrusted us with the research, along with Michigan State University, the research that's going to enable them to host the World Cup in 16 different, I want to call them stadiums, but they're called pitches in soccer. And I want you just to think for a second. Those stadiums range from, let's see, what's the range? South America to
Mexico City to Vancouver.
Yeah, okay, so just think about the elevation of those, the temperatures in those places, and also many of these places would have, some would be covered stadiums, some out in the open, and the grass has to be exactly the same in every one of them. You want to say a little bit more about that, Keith, technically speaking?
Absolutely. So the World Cup and the finals, by the way, we just heard from FIFA. The finals of the World Cup will be watched by 20% of the world's population. So when you think about the span of this activity and the research going behind it, for the University of Tennessee and our faculty, our researchers to be engaged in this is just absolutely huge. It started now, and FIFA has donated about $2.5 million for a research center over on the Ag Research Park, just near the hospital, and there are about 18 test plots where we're growing the grass that we'll need in San Diego. We're growing the grass we'll need in Mexico City, all indoors, and so to get ready. So it's going to have great worldwide implications. It's going to change the science of turfgrass, but I think it's also going to allow the University of Tennessee to have here forward decades of involvement with the largest sports organization in the world. So really excited about the support the university's given the Turfgrass program, but also isn't it going to be wonderful when we're watching World Cup to see the University of Tennessee on those boards around the stadium for the world to see. So thank you very much. Very excited.
Yeah, so I just want, I'm trying to present some unusual things that you might have missed in all of our brag sheets. This one is big, and I'm really we're so grateful to have the faculty that we have in UTIA leading this project. One other wonderful new partnership. I've talked to you a little bit about this over the last year or two, but I was in San Diego. That's Michael Crow there on the stage, and we've been working for 2 years on a partnership with Arizona State University around digital learning, and we are excited also to think about other ways we can partner with them, but this is the first one. And the idea is, one of the things that was appealing to me when we visited Arizona State and looked at all the innovations they're doing, but mainly in their online programs, they have been the leader. The most high-quality public university online program with the same faculty, the same courses, the same programs, the same degrees. And there's a lot of online programs out there that can't claim that. And so one of the things Michael Crow said at the very end of that visit to me was, why don't you partner with us? A lot of universities have gone out and tried to buy some of these for-profits and turn them into something that would work in their universities with varying levels of success, not many of them successful, honestly. And so we launched this relationship, and I'm really excited about it. We have Bruce Bain is leading. He's a professor in the business school who is now leading this effort. working with faculty all over our campus to develop a really extensive set of online programs, mainly initially aimed at undergraduate programs for people in Tennessee. We have almost 1 million people in Tennessee who have some college credit, but no college degree. And with the growth, expansion of business and employment, jobs in Tennessee, we need more people with baccalaureates. So we're excited about this. We're going to be, we've already increased our number of undergraduate programs by, I think, from 1 to 9. Is that right, John? And and we're hoping for an additional 10 in fall of 25. But ASU has guided us, advised us. They're our consultant, our partner. So we're learning from their mistakes and their successes, and it's going to be efficient in the following way: that while faculty are perhaps, let's imagine an online program in nuclear engineering, let's say, the first 2 years of coursework in that program probably look very much like the first 2 years at Arizona State. So if they have a nuclear engineering program, which I don't think they do, but I just picked that as an example, our students could take the first 2 years of courses that are actually offered by ASU, and then the last 2, that gives us time to scale up and get our programs together. They're very interested in programs that they don't have that we do. Ag is one, nuclear engineering is another one. So we're excited about this. So it's actually launched, and I was out there at a big innovation summit they host, talking, kind of announcing this more formally, our partnership. So we're excited about that. Any thoughts or reactions or anything? It's an out there kind of thing to do. Most universities, we compete with each other rather than collaborate. So that's the idea. Okay, so we're making really good progress on that. One last thing is, last week, Vanderbilt and UT Knoxville co-hosted on behalf of the Council on Competitiveness, that's a national program that we belong to. We had a 2-day summit around the innovation economy in Tennessee. And we talked about workforce needs. We had industry people there. We had the lab well represented, our leadership from UT Knoxville. We had panels with industry, one really great panel with automobile industry talking about energy and electric vehicles. It was just an exciting, you can see some of the people represented. And I think this is another example of collaboration, Vanderbilt and UTK working together in ways we haven't in the past. And secondly, really working with industry, with the lab, with TVA, which are just tremendous partners. Deb was on a panel there. Deb, any observation that you would like share with them from participating in that?
I think one of the takeaways from the meeting was how excited everybody who attended was to be in the same room, to be learning from each other. A number of people commented that this is the first time in their experience in Tennessee that we've had leaders from industry, national lab, and universities all gathered together talking about how to help Tennessee be competitive in the future. So it was a wonderful event.
And we had, the governor spoke, Senator Haggerty spoke. We had a panel that Randy was on, as well as Stuart McWhorter, who's the current commissioner for economic and community development, which Randy had that job before. So high-level people, high visibility, and we're really, really excited about that. I see that as that's sort of a representation, another way of thinking about the modern land grant in my world. So excited for that. You hear about us being the everything school. It's athletic department started it. I just gave you a whole bunch of examples of in other areas, but I think this is really cool to look at. We have 6 of our teams currently ranked in the top 10, and 2 more are in the top 20. I mean, that's just historic. And if y'all haven't been watching softball, it's exciting. Right now, we are, if we beat Kentucky twice, we will have won the conference title in softball. So things are really humming over there. I want to talk a little bit about campus infrastructure, because our growth is dependent on the growth in infrastructure that we need to go with this. I mean, our growth in enrollment is dependent on it. Our growth in the type of research we want to do is dependent on it. So we've been talking now for 2 years about the desperate need we have for a new chemistry building. We've asked for it in the governor's budget the last 2 years. We did not get it last year, but we were allowed to go ahead and start planning the building. It's a big project. We asked for $165 million, and that's not something they've come, that might be historic for, I think, for what we've ever asked for. 8,000 students a year use that building because their subject matter requires chemistry. We've had meetings with our local delegation who have been very supportive, really pushed this. This was a weird year in the legislature, according to our government relations office, in that there were a couple of big issues on the table that were going to require non-recurring dollars, and one of which you've read about in the papers, the franchise tax situation, and then also the educational waiver bill, which didn't pass. We did not get the funding again this year, but we did get permission to go ahead and spend the next stage takes $10 million, so we can spend our own money in the demolition of the building where we're going to put our new building, and continuing to hire the architects to proceed with the plans. We think this is important. I'm very positive and optimistic we're going to get this money next year. But by being able to continue the work, we really haven't lost time. Even if they gave us the money this year, we wouldn't have been really spending it because we have to do this other. So Randy and I stay hopeful about that. We had the groundbreaking on our new residence halls, which we are doing through a private-public partnership. Excited about that. And they're coming up out of the ground fast. And a third one is already underway. If you have driven by the parking lot across from Stokely Dorm, that parking lot is gone, and this third dorm is underway. So the first two dorms we are anticipating moving in the fall of '25, which is huge, and the third one would be the fall of '26. So that's going to be more like over 3,000 new beds, which will really be nice for both new students, continuing students, and replacing some of the dorms that need to come down. So progress is underway. And I've said before to you all that getting our facilities in shape is the biggest, how can I say this? It's the greatest opportunity we have to get to where we need to go. Now, 2 new buildings that we're going to be moving into our new Ag and Natural Resources building. It's going to open this coming fall. It's a beautiful building as you cross the Joe Johnson Bridge going toward Neyland on the right there. A lot of glass. I'm excited about that building. It's going to be really a heart stopper. It's beautiful. And also the Crowley Nursing Building, it's just making progress every day. It seems to, when you get to a certain point in these buildings and you're watching them from your window, they just start taking off in shape. So we're excited about that. That building is going to allow us to increase the number of nursing students we're able to admit and teach. Keith, is there anything you'd add about the Ag and Natural Resources building? What kind of courses are going to go in there?
We'll do 4 academic departments in there, plant science, soil science. We'll have forestry and natural resources in there as well. Smith International Center, 5 miles of heating and air conditioning ductwork are in that building. So it takes a lot of ductwork to cool 160,000, but again, it will transform. And one of the great things is working with East and West Campus working together. It's got a common area that's really going to be sort of like a university center for students studying, for our CVM students, veterinary medicine students, and Herbert students, which will be a really nice addition too.
That's fantastic. Speaking of which, Keith has just hired a new dean of our vet med college. Mm-hmm. Excited to have him.
Dr. Paul Plummer from Iowa State. He's been there 20 years and a renowned researcher and educator, but his roots, he's a graduate of the College of Veterinary Medicine in Knoxville. So happy to have Paul coming home after a couple decades away.
I wanted to give you a little bit of a deep dive into our new Baker School of Public Policy and Public Affairs. We had a dedication. This is a picture from it. It was one of the most moving Friday night dinners and speeches kind of event that I've ever gone to since I've been here. They had made a huge effort to find former staffers of Howard Baker's offices, and many of them came back, and it was a reunion for them and getting to talk about the values that Howard Baker believed in. You see them up there on those three pillars. It's all of us who don't know Howard Baker at the end of that weekend felt like we knew him really well. So let me tell you a little bit about the programs going on in there. You know that they've already launched this podcast series with the two governors, Bredesen and Haslam. And those two governors are enjoying that podcast. You might be right. That's the middle value there that Howard Baker used to say that. It has been really popular. It's in the top 10 in political podcasts. And they're modeling in that how you talk about difficult topics in a way that is respectful but still passionate. The school now has two programs, a master's in public policy and a bachelor's of science in public affairs. And they've got a staff over there recruiting undergraduate students, and they're very excited. A goal is to produce future leaders who have been trained in the values of Howard Baker and who are skilled in the art and science of actually solving problems, going to help govern and make things better. Now, housed in that school also is the new Civics Institute. And I wanted you to see just one of the things they're working on. This spring, they've had a series of lectures that they've hosted. The first one was called The Truth-Seeking Mission of the University with Dr. Robbie George. That was well attended, and all of these things end up having people from the community as well as students and faculty. The second one was called Is the American Dream Dying? This was really a debate between somebody who's on the conservative side and someone who's on the more progressive side about their views about that. Is the American dream still alive? Is it dying? And then the last one is a program called The Myth of the Left and Right, How the Political Spectrum Misleads and Harms America. And these two folks from, I don't remember exactly where they're from. They've written a book. We're here. So we're really proud of what's happening there. And I just wanted you to see that's an example of exactly what the Institute was designed to do. John, would you add anything else about the Baker School that we ought to?
The only thing I would add is I spoke to Dean Wanamaker yesterday, and they have 50 undergraduate students already registered for or indicating that they're going to come in the fall. So we think that this has an enormous potential for satisfying a real demand among our undergraduates.
That's fantastic. Okay, great. And then I wanted to share with you, this is, and I'm going to read through this. I want you to read with me. The UT system, the chancellors and the president came up with this policy that we all believe in. It's called the Neutrality Policy. The principal mission of the University of Tennessee is the pursuit and dissemination of knowledge through teaching, research, and service. To foster this mission, university administrators shall honor the principle of institutional neutrality and refrain from making statements on disputed political, moral, and religious topics. Public statements in the name of the university should be avoided, except where appropriate to address an issue that bears materially and directly on the university's core mission. The role of the university is to provide an impartial platform for scholarly debate. It is not to pronounce judgment. A position of institutional neutrality is not intended to limit the speech of the university's community, acting or speaking as individuals in their own names and not in the name of the university. Rather, institutional neutrality allows the university to be a true marketplace of ideas in which students, faculty, and staff have the broadest possible latitude to speak, write, listen, challenge, learn, and discuss any issue. However, when acting in a personal capacity as a citizen, an employee of the university speaks publicly or writes for publication, the employee shall take care to ensure that the employee's statements are not reasonably interpreted as being made on behalf of the university. We felt like it was important to clarify just expectations and the position of the leaders of each of the campuses and the president. And so that is on the system website. If you ever are interested, we did, there was considerable research that went into phrasing it, but I just thought would present that to you. It's really meant as a guide.
Could I ask a question about that, Dondi?
Sure.
Just because I think it's super important. I'm delighted that we have a statement like that. There are some people, though, that sort of fall through the cracks a little bit, and I'm mindfully aware that as Faculty Senate President, my role was sometimes speaking for the university and sometimes not as a faculty member,
Right.
who's in that position. So I hope that at some point or another we'll be able to provide guidance to people that are in these roles where there's some ambiguity about whether they're speaking for the university or not, because nobody wants to transgress the rules, but
Right.
everybody has a job to do. So
The way I would just respond back to that. It sounds like what you're saying is there were times, if you're the president of the faculty senate, there's times when you're speaking as president of the faculty senate, but you're not speaking for the university. You're speaking for the senate, right?
yeah, it's ambiguous, right? Because in the faculty handbook, the faculty senate is a governing body within the campus, right?
Right.
So the leader of that body is in some way, they're not an administrative official of the university, but they are a university campus leader.
Correct, but I think you're speaking for the group you lead. That would be just like if a
Okay.
department head speaks for their department, or Steve speaks for the library. He doesn't speak for UT Knoxville.
That's helpful.
Yeah, but thanks. That's a clarification that we probably need to think about. Appreciate that. Okay, any just last thoughts about the state of the university? I'll speak about admissions just real quickly, and then we're going to go to the budget. Anything about that update?
I would just say Joan's remarks are a good example of, I think, a lot of thought needs to be put into how this is shared and cascaded, and I'm looking at you, Provost, throughout the university to different departments and areas, because it's very easy to say, well, I didn't look at the website and didn't know that was what I was supposed to do or not do. So I think some intentional thought behind how this is communicated and answering questions like Joan's, I think there needs to be some intentional work done to cascade it through the university.
Okay. Great point. I want to remind you that earlier this fall, we implemented a new kind of admission criteria that we called the guaranteed admission for Tennesseans. And we established that if a Tennessean had a 4.0 or was in the top 10% of their class, they were automatically admitted to the university. And we immediately offered admission to something like over 6,000 Tennesseans. They have not confirmed at the rate we thought they would, but we believe that's because this year the FAFSA changes coming from the Department of Education have just slowed everything down. So across the country, students are not confirming. The May 1st deadline has been extended a lot of places. We extended ours till May 15th. We are ahead of other schools in the following regard. We've now been able to send out 70% of our first year financial aid packages. So kids can't confirm until they know how much money am I going to get, or scholarship money. So we've been able to do 70% of it has been received, but that's been in like the last 2 weeks. Is that fair to say, John? Nationally, 65% of the country hasn't sent out any financial aid packages. So we were able to get our system working faster than other universities. So we may have a number of students, we're theorizing about this, they're admitted here, they now know their financial aid package, but they're waiting to see what the financial aid package might be at another school. So we still think the policy has merit. We'll probably tinker with it this year because we don't want to crowd out other Tennesseans who are really great students but didn't have quite a 4.0. So we're going to be looking at that and we're building our class, but we're building it later than we have done in the past. Anything else to add to that, John? So just stay tuned. We'll keep you posted. John's staying very calm, and it's been
The
kind of
subject's been on national news.
yes, it's the same thing.
So
Yeah.
it's
So
good to
we're
hear
dealing
that.
with
It's
just
good to hear that UT's head of the system.
yeah. I think we by all the data we look at, we're ahead, but it's still slowed us down. So. Okay, so the last thing for the next thing today, I want to remind you that official responsibility by statute of this board is to, approve our budget, and at this time of the year, to look at the recommendations we're going to make to the Board of Trustees and ask for your approval to take those to them. So Alan Bolton is going to give the budget report, and Alan?
Great,
Carry
thank
on.
you. And good morning. I'm pleased to present the campus's fiscal 25 consolidated budget proposal for your discussion and consideration today. I do want to acknowledge, as I did last year, Kim McCulloch, who is our Associate Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. She and her team do an excellent job managing a very complicated university budget process and then finalizing all the materials that you have in front of you today. I also want to thank Provost Zomchek for his partnership in helping lead the university's budget preparation and management processes. He's been a really great colleague in this very important endeavor over these couple years that I've been involved in it. I'm going to deviate a bit from the order of today's presentation from what you saw last year because there are some foundational matters that I think will help you understand the specific budget recommendations that we're going to be bringing forward. So in that regard, this will be our order of discussion for today. Last May, I shared with you at the end of the presentation that we plan to pull together a small task force comprised of deans and fiscal officers and the provost office to discuss enhancements to our then two-year-old new budget process. Excuse me, we are now entering the third year of that, and we did, as we told you last year, and pulled that committee together in the late summer, early fall, to sort of tweak some things that we had recognized that could be improved to further align our resources with our strategic objectives for the institution. So from those goals that you saw on that slide, here are the outcomes that we got out of that process. First of all, we developed an institutional funding strategy for our capital projects and married that strategy to our campus master plan. What that looks like in the budget process is we are carving out, before the allocation process begins, $15 to $20 million a year, and we left it flexible, but we will marry that figure to the project in the master plan that we intend to support with those dollars in that year. This year, that will be $20 million, and it goes to what Dr. Plowman has already mentioned, which is we're going to be providing our matching support for the chemistry building to sort of prime the pump and keep that building on schedule, even though we're not being funded by the legislature this year. And I'll talk a little bit about what the legislature has given us permission to do, and it's pretty generous on their part. So we're going to be able to make a lot of progress in this year using our institutional dollars to get that building out of the ground a little bit faster. Secondly, we have adopted a revenue-based budgeting principle that we put in place this year, and for those of you in private business, you're probably shrugging and saying, okay, so what? In higher education, we often do an incremental or expense-based methodology for budgeting. And with our new budget model, it lends itself more to focusing on how we can pull levers and generate additional revenue to support the academic enterprise here. So it's a real frame shift in the way we think about budgeting going forward, and we think it's going to be pretty progressive and helpful as we sort of, again, focus on our strategic plan. I'm not going to get too much into the nomenclature in the model, but we all know that words and labels matter. And I think we sort of unintentionally had some labels in the model that our consultant at the time had recommended that upon a couple of years of utilization were not constructive in the discussion around the budgets. So we have altered those, and we're trying to introduce that new language into the culture. And we're getting some good traction on it. We did realign expectations around the amount of university funding to colleges. We had used budgeted numbers for that, and with one good year of actuals, we moved back to actuals because, importantly, all of our academic units outperformed their budgeted numbers. So with that very nice result, it was more beneficial to go ahead and push us into an actuals versus a budget target there. And then the Chancellor spoke a little bit about our relationship with Arizona State University, and as we stood up the digital learning program, which was a significant strategic goal for the institution, we went through a lot of discussions with the leadership, including the Dean's Council, and have positioned that digital learning in the model. It was originally conceptualized outside of our budget model, but we think it will get more support from the academic enterprise the way we've positioned it.
Can I just say one thing, Alan?
Certainly.
I just want to remind the board, this was the huge change we made in how we do budget allocations. To be more revenue-based or give deans incentives to grow revenues and to cut expenses. And so they have a lot more control over their piece of the financial pie. And so we're really proud of these outcomes. We also know we got to keep tinkering with the model. So I just wanted to put it in context. Keep going.
Good, thank you. And on the theme of tinkering with the model, we aren't going to tinker too much this year.
Yeah, that'll send out panic. Take that out of the record, you know.
The future enhancements to the model that we're conceptualizing, we are moving to a new enterprise performance management system. It's the software system that handles financials and HR and purchasing and accounts payable and those things. That's a system-wide implementation that will go live in January of the upcoming year. So we will be planning our fiscal 26 budget within that Oracle EPM. We also hope to shorten the cycle timeline. It seems that we are always in budget season here. We'd like to shorten that just a little bit. We now have historically, we have done budgets beginning in November and not ending until the end of March or early April. We would like to clean the calendar up a bit and push the planning for the budget, actually the budget preparation, into the winter and early spring so that we have more opportunities in the fall to do additional planning around the budget. Now our favorite topic, parking and transit. I want to acknowledge Brian Browning, who's our Associate Vice Chancellor for Operations and Real Estate. We gave him the real estate responsibilities for the campus in the fall, so congratulations to Brian for that. He has direct oversight of parking and transportation and a lot of other fun stuff on campus. He also recently recruited Tanera Teal-Tate, who's behind me. She is our new Executive Director of Parking and Transportation, And I have never been so excited for a director of parking and transportation to be on the team as I am with Tanera.
Monkeys on.
Yeah, pass the monkey.
That's right.
On her back now.
She is a Memphis native with 20 years of management experience in parking and transportation in higher ed. She escaped from Tennessee, and we brought her back. For the last 5 years, she had been at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, their flagship campus, leading parking, so a great institution, but she came to a better one.
There you go.
So Brian has led the assessment effort that I will describe, and Tanera gets the important opportunity to lead the implementation effort as we go forward.
Welcome, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about the engagement. Brian and others hired Wood Solutions Group. They're a national higher ed parking consultation firm to work with us. We knew a lot of what they found, but it was certainly helpful to have it quantified from a very well nationally respected organization. And those folks have really become friends and have been very helpful for us to develop a strategy. So some of the things we've learned through that process is there had been a growth in student parking demand that exceeded the growth in the parking spaces since 2018. Our spaces had been relatively flat during the period of growth. I think we may have added about 1,000 spaces over that time, but obviously the student numbers exceeded that. I was actually surprised to learn that 53% of our students purchase parking permits. If you're here on a Monday or Wednesday, it feels like every student brings 2 cars to campus. But it's really 53%. What we learned is, unlike our peer institutions, our parking rate structure was relatively or is relatively undifferentiated. And what I mean by that is, if you have a commuter sticker, the parking consultant said you essentially have a license to hunt on campus, but you can go in any commuter lot. And that was very unique to us and not common among others. And we had especially low parking rates, particularly for core parking. Why that's important is that led to a higher demand and different expectations. So the expectations of our parkers were, I don't have to pay too much, and I can park right in the middle of campus if I'm willing to circle the lot enough times for a spot to open up. And that'll be important as we address the recommendations. They found we lacked adequate on-demand or visitor parking options. I experienced that when I came to interview, where do you park? And so I was like 4 blocks away from Andy Hall Tower when I came to meet with Dondi for the first time. Our use of technology is behind peers, and our transit system is good and has capacity to better serve campus, but we need to figure out ways to get more people to use that transit system. So Tanera's got a lot of work to do over the next year, but she has hit the ground running. I'm going to talk about strategies for students, employees, and visitors. And the student strategy is the one that will impact the fee structures that we're going to be talking about in a minute. So we are going to be moving to a commuter parking strategy that will be on a zone basis. So we have a core zone, an intermediate zone that's sort of on the next circle, and then remote parking options. And there will be differentiated tags and permits for that, and different pricing so that we encourage people to get into those different levels. Non-commuter parking, those are the residential students, will be the same thing, but they will only have 2 zones, core and periphery. We will sell permits on a hierarchical basis, and Brian, I think it's done on a first come, first serve now, correct? Yes, yeah. So students with more seniority essentially get first preference for parking. And this is going to be highly coordinated with our student services with Frank Cuevas. We're going to be working to sort of blend our data sets. They've been 2 very different systems that haven't really communicated with each other. So we think that's going to be a great enhancement. We're going to be enhancing and expanding our T-bus routes. We're getting a new fleet of buses on our new 10-year contract. They begin to arrive in July. Really cool new graphics on them, so thanks to Tisha's team for working with us on that. And a hybrid fleet of buses, which was important to our student population. And then we're going to have enhanced locator technology so that when you drive up to a lot, you're not just going to see a sign that says X number of spaces, and half the time right now that's wrong. But you're going to be able to get on your phone and see if you're in